Before Barack Obama's presidency, the Bush and Clinton families ruled the Oval Office for the preceding 25 years.
At what point do the American people say, this is insane?
Not just two families.
It's time to turn the page on the Clintons and the Bushes.
Same challenge Jeb Bush has, right? Trying to introduce you to Jeb, not Bush. They're trying to introduce you to, in this case, Hillary Rodham, not Hillary Clinton.
The Clintons have a reputation of being slippery and hard to pin down.
They took on Hillary for being secretive.
People seeing her as too political, too calculating, too trying to have it all ways.
Senator Clinton says that she believes she can be the candidate for change.
Clinton's vulnerability is when you can emphasize the Clinton part of her name.
It's not only her second act.
They are portraying her as a fighter for people like you, the average voter, the middle-class voter.
But the debut of new positions on several hot-button issues.
Flip-flop.
Flip-flop. Flip-flop. You're right, she has shifted so far to the left in a year when voters are craving authenticity. The question is, will they buy it?
She has flipped on a whole series of issues.
Now, why is this important? It's important because I think elections are about the future. But how do you determine what will happen in the future? Well, you have to look to the record. You have to look to what we say in campaigns and what we have done during our careers.
But her top Democratic rivals then raised the issue of electability.
A lot of Democrats are concerned about that as to whether you can win a general election.
I think what people who are concerned about electability should be looking at is
The fact of the matter is that my colleague from New York, Senator Clinton, they're 50% of the American public. They say they're not going to vote for her. I'm not saying anything that people don't know already.
The new CNN ORC poll shows more people view her unfavorably than at any point since 2001.
Senator, they may actually want to run against you, and that's the reason they keep bringing you up.
Part of the reason that Republicans, I think, are obsessed with you, Hillary, is because that's a fight they're very comfortable having. It is the fight that we've been through since the 90s.
I do think that in any calculation and discussion of this, you have to keep remembering what Obama's campaign themes were, that we're going to turn the page on the Bushes and the Clintons. We're going to change the way Washington does business.
The big question is whether Clinton will be able to walk away from her
Flip-flop.
flip-flop, flip-flop reversals on several key issues for Democratic voters.
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life.
How does she has made a huge pivot to the left?
I think it's going to be used as a metaphor, Joe, for the campaign. Where do you stand?
The pounding she got from most of her Democratic rivals.
Hillary Clinton under yet more rhetoric gunfire from fellow Democrats this morning.
But even some Democrats believe you change your positions based on political expediency.
Her rivals say these shifts raise questions about her credibility.
But I do think that your record and what you say does matter.
First she said this, 5 seconds later, this. Unless I missed something, Senator Clinton said two different things in the course of about 2 minutes.
I can't tell whether she was for it or against it.
Secretary Clinton, though, with all due respect, the question is really about political expediency. Just in July in New Hampshire, you told the crowd you, quote, take a backseat to no one when it comes to progressive values. Last month in Ohio, you said you plead guilty to, quote, being kind of moderate and center.
I get accused of being kind of moderate and center. I plead guilty.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive.
It doesn't work that way.
Do you change your political identity based on who you're talking to?
They're accusing the senator of driving in reverse.
Where are you specifically on these big issues, these big questions? And if the voters start asking that, it could be a pretty interesting race.
Jeff, I guess the question is, will voters buy her
Flip-flop.
flip-flop,
Flip-flop.
sudden shift on some issues to the left?
questioning her consistency, her credibility, her electability.
That's up to the voters to decide.
A growing number say she's not honest and trustworthy.
I think that if people want the status quo, Senator Clinton's your candidate.
I think that's something that voters have to make a decision about. But I do think that your record and what you say does matter.
On her 2002 vote to authorize the president to go to war.
And perhaps my decision is influenced by my 8 years of experience on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, in the White House, watching my husband deal with serious challenges to our nation.
She voted for a war to authorize sending troops into Iraq.
Any vote that might lead to war should be hard, but I cast it with conviction. This is wrong, and every Democrat should be outraged.
You voted to authorize war. And then later said this was a war for diplomacy.
You voted against Carl Levin, who was saying give diplomacy a chance, and yet you said no. You voted to authorize war.
Imagine us as commander-in-chief.
The resolution you voted for, Robert Byrd said was a blank check for George Bush. Ted Kennedy says was a vote for war. James Carville and Paul Begala said anyone who says that vote wasn't a vote for war is bunk.
You are against same-sex marriage.
I believe that marriage is not just a bond, but a sacred bond between a man and a woman.
Do you think New York State should recognize gay marriage?
No.
No. Okay.
Now you're for it. Now you're for it.
How does she convince Democrats that these are changes of conviction, not changes of convenience?
You defended President Obama's immigration policies. Now you say they're too harsh. You supported his trade deal dozens of times.
And on trade, Clinton was a champion for the Pacific Rim Agreement.
You even called it the gold standard.
Hillary Clinton advocated for President Obama's trade deal.
We are making progress toward finalizing a far-reaching new trade agreement called the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The so-called TPP will lower barriers, raise standards, and drive long-term growth across the region.
Now suddenly last week, you're against it.
The Hill's rivals accuse her of supporting the plan and distancing herself from it all at once.
But I do think that your record and what you say does matter.
As Secretary of State, she traveled around the world, pushing the administration's deal at least 45 times in public speeches, saying it sets the gold standard in trade agreements.
So
last week, she came out against it.
You can't be for something or take credit for an administration and 35 years of experience, and then when you run for president, suggest somehow that you didn't really mean what you said back then.
Right. Hillary Clinton knows this issue better than anybody at this table. Hillary has been an expert. She was Secretary of State when this thing was put together. What she really believes? Is she for trade or against it?
She's for getting elected.
It doesn't work that way.
History celebrates profiles in courage, not profiles in convenience.
Says she took 6 different positions on that issue. Flip-flop.
Flip-flop. Flip-flop. Imagine us in the Oval Office.
Because there's a narrative emerging from now within the Democratic Party from Hillary's opponents, and that is that she's not candid, she's not specific, she's trying to waffle.
So, it's easier to understand why the Clinton campaign would rather plant their questions than answer them.
It's imperative that we get the record and the facts straight because people are entitled to have that information.
An issue that emerged, which I thought was interesting, trade. Senator Clinton was asked about the North America Free Trade Agreement, which President Clinton considers one of the most important achievements of his administration. And this is what she said.
Was NAFTA a mistake?
NAFTA was a mistake to the extent that it did not deliver on what we had hoped it would.
That's in stark contrast to what Senator Clinton had said.
And what you say does matter.
She told people it has proved its worth.
I think that NAFTA is proving its worth.
Here she is in 04. I think on balance, NAFTA has been good for New York and America.
The truth is that Senator Clinton supported NAFTA before she ran for president.
Flip-flop.
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 And Senator Clinton, in her campaign, I think has been for NAFTA.
Participants in that event said, quote, her remarks were totally pro-NAFTA.
Previously, now she's against it. In her book, she called it one of the administration's successes.
Apparently she's for it, sort of.
And by the way, we're transitioning Hillary Clinton, somebody who was for these trade agreements before she became a candidate. Now
flip-flop.
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 And what you say does matter.
I mean, that is indisputable. She called it a victory in her book.
And when Barack Obama sent out this mailer last month in Ohio arguing that Clinton actually supported NAFTA as First Lady, Clinton exploded, accusing Obama of dirty tricks.
Is that this is Hillary Clinton.
She has taken one position and then most recently has taken a different position.
Will you say anything to get elected?
You know, we need to let voters actually make up their minds.
Hillary Clinton, she'll say anything and change nothing. It's time to turn the page.